Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're at the end of 2020, so what better time to do my 2020 ranking of all the films I've seen that released this year. And what a year was it? Holy shit, 2020. It sucked. This is the worst year on record for sure in a very long time anyway, if we're talking worldwide. We had this crazy virus that affected the whole planet. We got fires, we had protests, we had crazy elections in the states. It was just the whole world was gone crazy. It seemed like at one point, and I'm just glad to get on the other side of 2020 because even movies were affected. Theaters were shut down starting in March, I think, and they never really fully came back as of yet. And things are just never really going to get better for a little while anyway. I think we'll come back to the way we were. Theaters will blossom and bloom again, and everything will eventually be back to normal, but it may take years. So let's get into the movies I've seen in 2020. There's 41 of them. Now, I did more last year, but this year there was less release, so I focused more on 80s movies. I went back and went to a lot of things I missed, and I just revisited a bunch of things in 2020. I think I watched the Friday the 13th box set, not the box set, but all the movies probably about 4 or 5 times, like straight marathon them in this year. And I always do it a couple times a year, but I think I even did it more this year. And it could have been because the box set came out, or it could have been just because of this year just kind of sucked. So why not revisit the things we love? So I'll give a little disclaimer to start my video. Now, obviously, I haven't seen all the movies of 2020, not even all the big ones, but I have seen 41 of them, and these are going to be ranked from worst to best. So this may take a while too. I'll try my best to keep this moving forward. And another thing is the way I rank them and rate these movies is only half on like a critical standpoint, like the way it was filmed, the directing, and all that. And the other half is just plain enjoyment and how much I found it rewatchable, how fun I had with the movie. That all gets factored into with the more critical standpoint of it. So guys, sit back and relax, and let's get into the 41 movies I have seen this year, ranked from worst to best. So coming in the last place, the worst movie I've seen this year at 41, we got The Turning, a horror movie. This is a adaptation of the Turn of the Screw or something like that. It's an old book from the late 1800s. I haven't read it, but yeah, this was a terrible movie. And a lot of these movies I haven't seen since like maybe January, some of them, because this is throughout all 2020, so it's a little hard to remember all of them. But from what I gathered from this movie, I hated it. What I remember, the characters kind of all sucked. The movie was a very slow burn that really sizzled out before it really reached a finale. There was this twist that I don't think was executed very well at all. It wasn't a big shocker at the end. I was more disappointed in how things played out. And yeah, this was just a waste of time. I didn't have fun with it at all. You get the kid from Stranger Things, and he's on a few different things nowadays, but he's this plain straight up asshole in this movie. He's written that way, but it was really for no reason really. And I just didn't care for this movie at all. And this easily was my least favorite of the year so far. Coming in at number 40, we got Guest House, a new movie that just dropped on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's a Netflix original. I don't have that information with me right now, but it's a new Pauly Shore movie, and that probably should have told me to stay away from it. Because, his career died 20 years ago, and I don't really know how he had one to begin with. He's still trying to be the same Pauly Shore he always was, but he like even goes a little farther, where he's just like his antics are just doing drugs right in front of people. And yeah, the whole movie is just him living in a guest house while this newly married couple or engaged couple buy this house, and he's in the guest house, and there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to get him out. It's like at first they're just too shy to ask him or whatever, don't feel too bad for him. But as the movie goes on and it just keeps getting crazier with his parties and that, there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to just call the cops or whatever and get him out of there. That bothered me in the movie, where it was like, this is going on for no reason. And yeah, like I said, the jokes, none of them landed. It's just Pauly Shore saying a bunch of sex things and going around with topless chicks. thinking that will save his movie, which it did not at all. This movie was the worst comedy of the year. And yeah, it was just terrible. I should have known to stay away. Even though there's a few cool cameos in it and other actors that I'm familiar with that I enjoy sprinkled throughout this film, they don't save it, even though they are the best parts of this movie. Hitting the 30s, at number 39, we got The Craft, or Craft the Legacy. This is the new sequel, I guess, to the 1996 film The Craft. I just watched the original for the first time right before I watched this one, and that might have been a bad choice because the first movie is just so much better characters, better everything. Yeah, this one I didn't care for the characters. They were okay, but none of them stood out in an iconic way like the old ones do. Like all four of the girls in the original, you get attached to, and they all had their own personalities. This one I didn't feel like they worked too hard on that. But the movie was okay up until the first hour part, I'd say, an hour mark. It just completely it falls apart. I hate it where the movie went, the direction it took. Just the whole finale was cheap. They start using cheap effects, and I just didn't like it at all. Like I said, the first movie I'll be revisiting, but this one I will not. I just wasn't a fan of it. It went in a direction I didn't care for at all. Just the whole witchery and everything that the girls do in the first one was done way worse in the second film, the sequel. And to call it a sequel, there's only like one little thing that attaches these two movies. It's, I wouldn't want to say money, a cash grab like Black Christmas was 2019, but it wasn't real great either. Next up at number 38, we got The Wrong Missy, Netflix original with David Spade. Right there, again, I should have known better to stay away from this. But I watched it, and while it wasn't the worst Netflix David Spade, Adam Sandler type movie, comedy, it's not good. It's very predictable. You get this David Spade, you get him going down on vacation down south. I forget for anyway, pretty much just a party down there, and he invites the wrong girl. It's a different Missy. Like, to get those two screwed up is one thing. Like, okay, this is like a typical 90s plot line to a comedy, but it just doesn't work. The jokes all fall flat again. Like, well, the last 10 years we never got really high quality comedies anyway, but this one definitely isn't one. I don't know, I may have laughed like one time in the whole movie. It's just Netflix up to their no good movies that nobody wants to see, really. At number 37, we got Uncle Peckerhead. Now, with a movie title like this, you're thinking, okay, this is going to be a fun, silly, or maybe over-the-top comedy horror. This is what I was thinking going into this. Boy, was I wrong. It plays it way too safe. With a name like Uncle Peckerhead, it's about this band going on tour for the first time, this punk band, and they hire this guy as a roadie who is Peckerhead. Excuse me. And he becomes like a demon cannibal every night at 12. And you think, wow, this sounds like a crazy good movie. Just that premise alone is good, but the rest of the movie just fell flat for me. It was just kind of boring. They focused way too much on the band aspect and being a punk band and just having a lot more heart than the movie actually deserved. Because, like I said, this is such a silly premise that they should have went all out with the demon aspect and have him a lot more blood, a lot more, have him out eating people and causing havoc with their tour. But you don't really get any of that. You get one or two instances of him doing demon stuff, and for the most part of the movie, it's played pretty straight-laced and a more serious tone, and I just couldn't believe it. I thought this was going to be an off-the-walls crazy movie. That's what I wanted. And maybe on rewatch this would go up because I wouldn't be expecting that off-the-walls craziness, but as of now, it just really let me down, to be honest. Next up at number 36, we got the controversial Fantasy Island. Not so much controversial, just hated, I should say, Fantasy Island. And from here on out, I don't hate any of these movies. Now I'm at the mixed line, right here. The mixed line. All the bad is behind us now. This is half good, half bad. I don't think this is as bad as most people are saying. It definitely wasn't good. I'm not defending this. I'm just trying to say it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, like some people have been stating. It takes a weird concept with Fantasy Island, the old TV show, and turns it and makes it this unique horror movie where people go to this island. Whatever your fantasy is, whatever you dream of, will come true, but with a consequence. There's always consequences to things like this. I think that the worst part is they didn't really know where to go with it once they got started. Like I was interested pretty much the whole time. I was really let down by the ending though. It was a terrible ending. I'll say that. They didn't really know how to wrap it up or to explain really what was going on. They explained it. It just was a bad explanation, and just it was poorly written, I guess you could say. But yeah, the characters were okay. I didn't like I said hate this movie. It was just okay to me. And maybe I'll revisit this in 5, 10 years, who knows, but I'm not anxious to run back and see it again. So next at number 35, we got Gretel and Hansel. Flipping the title there. We've seen so many different fairy tale horror movie adaptations, like whether it's Little Red Riding Hood or Hansel and Gretel. It works because those fairy tales were pretty dark back in the day, and Disney and them just kind of lightened them over the years. But this, I had high hopes for it. It was an interesting. I like to see fairy tale type movies like this when they're done right, and this one has a ton of atmosphere. I'll give it that. Like the cinematography is great. There's atmosphere. It it all just kind of builds up to another kind of letdown ending. Even though this one was done a little bit better, everything made sense. It's just the way it ending. Well, you know yourself. The story is two kids get lost, go find this witch, and she feeds them, tries to fatten them up, and eating them. So that's what you want to see this whole movie, but we don't really get that this whole movie. You're waiting for her to go crazy, and just like that's pretty much what you're waiting for an hour and a half. But it doesn't exactly play out that way. They change it up a little bit in a way that I wasn't too fond of. Um this is a PG-13, I believe, horror movie, and you can kind of tell while you're watching it that there's no real hard R rating stuff in this. There's nothing too disturbing or nothing like a young teen would be able to watch this, I believe. And yeah, it had potential, but it lacked intensity. To be honest, it lacked a witch just going mad crazy for a half hour, which that I guess that's just what I was looking for, but it was still okay nonetheless. Like I said, a middle of the road movie, very mixed. So next up at number 34, we got Possessor, Brandon Cronenberg's first directorial debut. And wow, he's the son of David Cronenberg, as everybody knows from the 80s. He did the wonderful The Fly remake. This movie has style, man. Like the Cronenberg, you can see that he has a future in front of him. This movie, like, this has so much style. I don't know how else to say it. It's the use of the color yellow too is very prominent, which is unique in a film. You don't see that too often. This is about people using other people's bodies, like Possessor. They find a way to go in, and you can control them and make them do different things to almost like take control of businesses or whatever. Pretty much using their body and the control that they have with the company or whatever they're trying to take over, and use them. And there's no way of getting caught this way because it makes it seem like he's doing it, and you can even get them to kill people you don't want around in that. And you finish your mission by shooting yourself. That body dies and you go back into your body. But there's consequences of going in and out of these bodies all the time, and the main girl starts suffering from psychological problems and all that with her real life and this new life that she keeps taking on. And it's interesting. It's a very interesting concept, a really high concept. I liked it. It was almost in the vein of Inception, but done very differently. Instead of using the dreams, you're just using them themselves. So in the end, I loved the concept. I loved the visuals, but the movie itself, the execution, I don't think it was planned out or story written very well. Like the screenplay, I don't think was done that well, because you got this pretty weak storyline, very good concept though, original concept, and really good acting. You don't got much actors in this, so the ones that we do get are very, very good. I just don't like where the movie went. Again, the endings, man. It's 2020. Hopefully, we have a better ending in 2020 because these movies, I just don't like the way things play out at all. And it's too bad because this movie had so much potential again. And soon we'll be moving up onto the passing mark on my movies, and we'll be starting to talk a little bit more positive. But yeah, my next movie we got on this list, number 33, is Dead Dicks. Now, I probably would have never even heard of this movie or watched it if it wasn't for Horror Pack sending it to me, so thank you, Horror Pack. They sent me this movie, and another very, very cool concept. Like this Possessor, a few of the movies around the spots, they're here because I didn't really care for the movies, but they had very interesting ideas, and they were original, and that's always nice to see. But as for Dead Dicks, it's about this guy named Richard, hence the Dead Dicks. He's very suicidal, and he realizes that he's killing himself only to wake up and then find his dead body in his apartment. And this is a very small budget, low scale movie. Not many actors or anything. And I think this was filmed in Montreal, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, and he just keeps getting reborn through this like vagina in his wall. A very strange movie, but I was intrigued and interested by its originality and high concepts. The only thing, this had such originality and high concepts that it didn't have the budget or really the script to pull it off. Everything feels restrained and restricted. There's rules to this world that they make, but they're not explained very well. I did really enjoy the landlord of the apartment. I found he was a nice addition to this film where you're talking about suicide and it's pretty dark at times, but he really added the humor and really added more tension into the film because he's trying to find out what's going on in that. It's just, I think someone with more experience and more money could have really pulled off something really cool here, and maybe they will get to do it in the future, hopefully. But as of now, Dead Dicks is in the middle of the road for me. Next up at number 32, we got the movie Hosts. Now, this is with an S, Hosts, the UK movie. I actually went in to watch the movie Host, the new 2020 movie. I think it's an American movie with about the Zoom calls and that, the horror movie. Accidentally got this one instead and didn't realize till last minute, so I never got to watch that other movie. It's not on this list, which is too bad because I heard great things about it and it seems to be on a lot of people's top 10. But I got stuck with this one, Host with an S, the UK film, and it was okay for being a blind watch. So this movie is about a family who invited their neighbors over for Christmas dinner, and it's almost like a mixture of Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Funny Games, if you understand that, all mixed into like a home invasion movie with a lot of religious themes and undertones. It was interesting enough. I felt like, again, they wrote themselves into a corner. That's what all these movies that pretty much failed for me, besides the real low ones on my list. They didn't know where to go after they had their unique concepts and that. Again, like I said, what's that movie at World's End with Simon Pegg? One of the trilogies that he's in there with the Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz there. That at World's End, that kind of really reminded me of this too. And it's just about people getting taken over by some demon or unknown force, and they're controlling their bodies, and they go into this family's house and pretty much torture them and psychologically screw them up for the remainder of the movie. But this movie uses more shock and like more shock and just trying to almost get under your skin, either than having a actual good storyline. Like I was invested until they got into the house and just they were doing things almost for no reason. They don't really explain why this home invasion is going on. It's all left very ominous and left to the viewer to decide with all, like I said, all these religious themes and that woven through. But yeah, it just missed the mark my passing mark. I did enjoy how shocking and some scenes were because they weren't afraid to go there, but it didn't amount to anything in the end when when your storyline just ends on kind of a sour note. So from here on out, all the movies are a passing grade for me. They're at least a 6 out of 10 or higher. And coming in at 31, we got Deathstroke Knights and Dragons, the movie. This was a very good story to it. It had pretty cool animation, but it all felt too much like a TV series, like a Saturday morning cartoon you'd put on for the kids, but done with more adult graphics and the themes in it. The problem with that was this is a movie, and I think it was meant to be a TV show from what I read, and they decided it wasn't going to work, so they didn't make releasing it as a feature film. But it just feels very episodic. Like it feels like 3 episodes mashed together from a starting of a series. Although it's very good, I had a really good time with it. I enjoyed all the characters. Deathstroke was badass in it. It's just the animation itself looked very much like a TV show you'd see on TV for the budget value of it, which it was, and it felt like there was supposed to be more episodes when I was done. That's the way I felt. It wasn't in movie format. That was the problem here with the graphics and with just the way it was written and put together. But like I said, that was because they literally cut up a TV show and made this movie. So it's not really its fault. I wish they would have went for just the movie from the start, and I think it would have turned out to be a better product. But it was still worth watching. I had a good enough time with it. Next up at number 30, we got Blood Quantum, the new zombie movie, which features indigenous people from Canada, where I'm from. This is the one movie where I actually got to see some of my homeland. The green bridge that you see throughout this movie, I traveled on more times than I could count. I guess I would be considered a townie in the movie. So I'm technically what they're trying to keep out of this native reserve, which is also really here. There's really a native reserve right across that bridge, Listugush. So that was really interesting. While the movie itself, I feel like it suffers from only having first draft syndrome. Like if they would have rewrote this a few more times and really tightened it up, I think it would have been a really good movie. The gore was there though. I loved the gore. The zombies looked great. And like I said, it was just so cool seeing my hometown and that, because it's never been shown in like a movie or anything before. I'm from a small town in New Brunswick, Canada, so we don't have anything like that. Closest thing to us is Trailer Park Boys over next door in Nova Scotia, or unless you head down in Maine to Stephen King land. So this was just very cool for me to see. And people love social commentary, like in movies like Dawn of the Dead and different things like that, where there's more than just what you see. There's a message throughout about how we live as a society and the social commentary. This movie has that about how natives are treated and that in the world today, and how pretty much they've been forgotten even with Mother Nature. So yeah, it was just an interesting watch. Next up, at number 29, we got Come to Daddy. Now this says 2019 on there, but some of these were released in festivals in 2019, but when their major release was in 2020, they're on this list, if I watch them. So Come to Daddy is a movie with Elijah Wood going to meet his father, and I don't remember exactly how this went, but I remember it being very bizarre, and it starts unfolding after the first half hour, and you're like, what the hell is happening? What you think you're watching isn't. It completely kind of switches it on you. It was a bizarre one. I had a good enough time with it. It's not going to be for everybody. This is like a dark thriller on the verge of horror. There's a few things people will probably find disturbing in it. I found it was a pretty good time. It was just a very bizarre way for the third act to end. If you've seen it, when he's at the motel and that. You got Elijah Wood with a really weird haircut in this one too. But yeah, this is a bizarre movie. I don't know if I'll ever revisit it, but it was interesting enough for a first time watch. Next up at number 28, we got the Vin Diesel movie Bloodshot. This movie is generic. We got generic written all over it. There's nothing wrong with it besides that it plays it way too safe. This like the storyline's pretty predictable. Yeah, it's about the slain soldier that gains superpowers after he's been experimented on, and I think like he can take bullets and stuff. But it wasn't very memorable either. I think I seen this around June or July, the midway mark of the season of the year. I mean, and yeah, it's just not too memorable at all. Like I said, it's just a very generic modern action movie. With you're not going to see any twists. You're not going to be too shocked. But this isn't bad at all. There's decent acting. There's a decent storyline. Everything wraps up fairly nicely. It's just that I feel like they played it too safe. So coming in at number 27, we got Hubie Halloween, the Halloween holiday movie that Netflix put out with Adam Sandler. I did a review on this one this year. It surprised me because Netflix and Adam Sandler do not mix at all, and I think this is one of their better efforts together. Yeah, it was funny enough, a little childish at times, I'd say, but overall it had a lot of holiday spirit. It felt like Halloween, from the music to the radio station and all the decorations, the costumes. It all looked great. It got you into the holiday spirit. And apparently this is sparking Adam Sandler to start to want to do a universe, a multiverse, I guess, with all of his characters, because he sprinkled a little bit of that throughout this movie, like with the kids shooting the dog, or him shooting the dodgeball at the kids, or the other way around. I can't remember. It's been since October, and I watched a lot of movies since then. But yeah, this was okay. I enjoyed it enough. I might pop it in from year to year, every couple of years or so on Halloween, and it's one of his better Netflix efforts. I'll say that. Coming in at number 26, this might be the first controversial take on here. Onward. Now, when this came out, this Pixar movie, people loved it. I seen all the reviews; they were all talking highly of it, saying it had a lot of heart. It was a very enjoyable. I watched this through. I watched every Pixar movie before I watched this. I did a 22 movie marathon of all of them and ranked all of them, which was probably not the best idea. But by the time I got to this one, I felt it didn't resonate with me as much as the other movies did. Some of the other ones. This wasn't the worst one, but it was very average for Pixar. They're usually above and beyond with like Toy Story and Monsters Inc. All those classics. But this one, it just didn't do it for me. The story, the adventure that they went on, it was all just passable for me, just average. But for Pixar, I set my standards higher, which we've come to expect nowadays. Besides, like the Cars franchise, they've been doing very well. And this, I don't know, maybe on second watch, I'll appreciate this more. I will give it another chance, but as for now, this is just average, an average animated film, which Pixar should not be classified under. So coming in at number 25, we got Unhinged, the new Russell Crowe film. That's a pretty dark thriller, I'd say. This is about road rage and the consequences of maybe yelling at someone or flipping someone off when they're having a bad day. It could mean bad things. And this girl, the main girl in this movie, finds that out when she honks her horn aggressively and kind of yells at Russell Crowe's character, who is just completely losing it. He kind of snapped, and he's a very broken man, and he's unstable. So once this happens to him, in his head, he's like, I'm going to make sure she has the worst day of her life. And he just follows her and just puts her through the worst day of her life, really. And this was an okay movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Russell Crowe kills it as the villain. He really looks like a man who's about to snap. His like eyes twitching in that at times. And yeah, he just plays it very well. The only thing, this movie, there's a few coincidences that happens that keep the plot moving. And I don't know why this would go on as long as it did. Like, now, especially nowadays, with everybody with cell phones and with cameras everywhere, you should be able to just call the police and have this done with almost immediately. But there's a few, I'd say, unwise decisions in the script that keeps the movie going. And it has to get for a concept like this, for a guy just going after you because he's mad. But all in all, this was an okay movie. It's definitely good for a Saturday night watch. It's It's a dark thriller. It doesn't go too much into the horror, even though there are definitely horror elements in it. And this is not for everybody, but if you definitely want to see Russell Crowe in a more of a dark thriller, this is the one for you. Next up at number 24, we got Underwater, starring Kristen Stewart. Now, I know a lot of people hate on her. I barely even know her. I haven't watched the Twilight movies and only know that she's in them because of internet memes. So when Underwater came out, I'm like, I barely know this girl. I'll check it out. And it's very reminiscent of like the Abyss and like Aliens kind of mixed. It's kind of like an alien movie underwater. You get this earthquake or whatever that happens that while this group is underwater. And yeah, there's tension and chaos ensues. So the main character is just trying to get to safety, and she's stuck in her research facility underwater while creatures are surrounding their facility and causing trouble. I don't want to get too much into these movies. These are not spoilers. I'm just going through my rankings. I did enjoy this movie quite a bit. I felt like it had way more potential than what it showed us. This could have been a start of a creature franchise, if you will, because I love my creature features like Alien and you name it, Lake Placid, any type of creature feature I love. And yeah, this one was good. I want to revisit it. Just I haven't watched this one since the beginning of the year, so it's a little fuzzy in my mind, but I remember really enjoying it. I was shocked at the ending quite a bit, and it delivered on what I thought was just going to be another B monster movie. Next up at number 23, we got My Spy, a Dave Bautista comedy, and I always enjoy Dave Bautista. I find he's hilarious. It's like he was meant to be an action star, but once you see him in comedies, you're like, no, he was really meant for that. Almost like Arnold Schwarzenegger going from like the Terminator to Kindergarten Cop. That's what I feel like Dave Bautista, his career is heading, and I love it. And this I thought was going to be another little family comedy that isn't that funny and plays it way too safe. But this one surprised me a bit. It has a little bit of an edge to it, and he's just training this little kid to be a spy because she's blackmailing him, and it just the little interactions with him and the kid get into is hilarious. Dave, I loved him ever since I found him. I think on Guardians of the Galaxy, and he kills it in that role too. And he's just as funny in this, and I think he has a future in comedies. There was another one, Stuber, last year, which I really enjoyed too. And this is kind of in the same vein. A little less funny. I'd say just a tiny bit, but it's still a great film. And watch it if you're looking for another comedy. So at number 22, we got We Summon the Darkness with Alexandra Daddario. And Johnny Knoxville's in this for a little bit. This was one of those cult movies mixed with heavy metal. So that got me intrigued. I'm a big thrash metal fan. So when they start mentioning Megadeth and Metallica in their conversations in this movie, it was like my teenager's dream to see a movie like that. Which I still think they should do a biopic on one of those thrash metal bands. It'd be so easy. That or Ozzy. But besides the point, this was a pretty good movie. I didn't mind it. It didn't go above and beyond, but it hit the mark. I'm a big fan of Alexandra Daddario too. She's great. Well, she's okay in this film. She's great to me. I just love her. She has a certain charm to her character that she always brings. As for the movie itself, it was interesting. It took a few turns that I didn't really see coming, especially with the main plot. I wasn't exactly sure how this was going to tie into a thriller horror movie because the first half hour or so they're just going to this music concert and that. But once shit starts going down, it picks up fairly quick. And yeah, I was happy of where it went. I just wish we would have got a little more Johnny Knoxville because seeing his name on the title, I expect to see a lot more of him, but you don't get too much of him in this. But yeah, this was a decent watch. Next up at number 21, we got Color Out of Space. Now, this is Nicolas Cage doing Nicolas Cage. Doing what he does best. Being in these crazy, unorthodox horror movies, and this one's no exception. It's a weird psychedelic trip it's like an alien, almost like the Blob or something, taking over the town or their farmhouse, but in a really weird way. It almost mixes nature and mixes our biochemistry with itself, and it makes for some cool things that look like The Thing a little bit. Like you get like llamas stuck together and stuff like that. It messes with your brain. It like the aliens start becoming one with the people too around there, and obviously with Nicolas Cage, you got him doing crazy stuff that makes sense with a premise like this. And yeah, it was visually stunning. It had a really cool premise, and it just missed my mark of 7 out of 10 movies. This is like a 6.8 I would give it out of 10. It was good, but I could have been a little bit better. But from here on out, they're all going to be good movies. So we're at number 20, and like I said, from number 20 up, these are all going to be good movies. Movies I find good to great to amazing. But I'll tell you when those shifts change. But coming in at number 20, we got Love and Monsters. Now, this is a movie that I never really heard of or anything until like a week before I watched it. A week or two before I watched it, I did a reaction to the trailer, and it seemed interesting enough. They were comparing it to Tremors meets something else. And this is not going to be a classic like Tremors, I'll tell you that. But this is a good movie. It has a lot of heart. Excuse me. A lot of comedy. It's the main lead did a really good job too. I think it's in this apocalyptic movie where bugs and different things like that grow like 10 size and roaming around like monsters. And the main lead is trying to find his true love that he got split up from when the apocalypse started. And he is a 7-day journey away from her. So this movie is him on his journey to try to find her and save her and prove that he is a man. Because it feels like he has no use in this apocalypse. He has no skills or traits that he could use. And it's kind of getting to his character. So he wants to prove to himself that he can do this journey and have something to say. And yeah, it's almost like in the vein of Zombieland, but not rated R. Yeah, this is PG-13, and you can tell I really wish they would have went that rated R. But yeah, it's a little less stylistic than Zombieland. I wouldn't give it that. I think Zombieland's a better film with a lot more of an all-star cast. There's a lot of more no names on this, except for one guy. I can't remember his name. Michael Rooker from Walking Dead. I'm pretty sure that's his name. He was pretty good in this. He hangs out with this little girl, and they're pretty crazy in the apocalypse. But besides that, you don't get the all-star cast that Zombieland did, so I didn't expect it to be crazy like that. But you also don't get the gore or nothing either. This is monsters, not zombies. And yeah, it's a PG-13 monster movie that I think that you could watch with the whole family and get enjoyment out of it. Everybody from kids to adults. Coming in at number 19, we got Sonic the Hedgehog. And who would have ever thought they would have made a movie about Sonic the Sega game? And even if they did, I don't think anybody would think it would turn out to be a road trip movie like this. That's the only kind of negative I have for it. It doesn't feel like a Sonic movie. This feels just like a buddy movie going on a road trip. With it just happens to be Sonic and a guy, and you get a few of the Sonic jokes with him being a hedgehog and that. But for the most part, this is not very much a Sonic movie. You get Jim Carrey as the villain, as Egghead himself, whatever the hell you call him. He is awesome. I really love to see him back into this form. He hasn't done acting like this in a while, Jim Carrey. And I don't think we want him to overdo it either, or it'll end up almost like a Will Ferrell thing. But yeah, he did a great job in this. He only becomes really the villain at the very, very end. Well, he's the villain the whole throughout. I mean, looks-wise. Around the credits scene, he gets real big, like in the cartoon and in the video game. But yeah, this was just an okay road trip movie with Sonic in it. That was another good movie for the whole family, I guess. Just not what I was expecting. Next up, we got the brand new Wonder Woman 1984. I obviously just watched this. It was only released on Christmas, I believe. And well, again, this is a good movie. This is up there with my good movies. But I love the original Wonder Woman. It is my favorite DCEU movie in that universe. It's my favorite. And this one wasn't as epic. It lacked the epic moments that that original had, that 2017 film. But what I do give this movie, the characters were still great. The acting was still on par. I love the addition of Cheetah. I felt like she was kind of ripped off screen time though. I would have loved to see more of Cheetah. And Kristen Wiig, that's her name, the one who plays her, and she's great. She's been great in the last 10 years, all the films that she's been in, and she really adds something to the. If she wasn't in this film, it was someone else playing Cheetah, I don't think this movie would have done as well, even though the ratings seem to be going down every day as we speak. But yeah, it's the first hour and a half is more melodrama, and then we get more of what we wanted in the second half. That's the only problems I have in this movie. Not enough Cheetah, not enough Wonder Woman for a Wonder Woman movie. And the main villain, not Cheetah, the other one, Max Lord, a little bit weak. But besides that, it's still very much of a watchable movie. Good superhero movie. Just wish there was a little bit more action, I guess. Next up at number 17, we got An American Pickle. This is a Seth Rogen film, and a very odd one about a guy falling into brine or whatever they use to make pickles and vinegar or whatever, and getting sealed off with no one knowing, and the factory shutting down, and then coming back in the year, I think 2020 or around now, in modern times, someone releasing him or him getting released somehow and still being perfect shape. He was like a pickled, if you will. That's why it's called American Pickle. And so he is from 100 years ago, living in now, and it is just crazy to him. America has changed so much. So he goes and visits his I believe his relative. I think it's his grandson. It was a little while since I watched this movie too, and which is played by himself as well, one with the beard and one without the beard, and just getting. He does a pretty good job at acting with himself in this. There's quite a bit of jokes that really work with our times, like with 2020. The man from 100 years ago, the pickled man, I'll call him Pickled Rogan for this little video. Pickled Rogan, they almost treat him like Trump, and they get into little fights and stuff. So he tells them to go on Twitter and talk all crazy, so because he think everybody will hate him, but everybody ends up loving him and being like, oh, this big guy on Twitter, almost like Trump, you know. They figured it would backfire on him, but he's getting more popular on it. And there's just little things like that that they add into the film. Like he doesn't realize he's a racist because he's from back in the day and times have changed so much. And it just really worked. It's a very different type of Seth Rogen comedy. It's not like Pineapple Express or anything like that, but I think it still works. It has a little bit more heart, but it's still silly at times. And yeah, it's just a great film. So coming in at number 16, we got 1BR. Now, I went into this movie fairly blind. This was an odd one. It's a girl who goes to an apartment complex, tries to get a rent a spot there, and they allow her in. But as soon you start to figure out that this is almost like a cult village, this whole big apartment complex, they're all in it together, and you can just imagine they don't want to let her leave in that. So it's one of those movies which it was okay. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The way that the things play out in the end, it makes you think there could be sequels or it's something bigger than just this apartment complex. And it's definitely one worth checking out if you're into the thriller / horror scene. It doesn't go too far into the horror, but it's more of a dark thriller. But I had a pretty good time with it. Good acting overall, pretty good premise, and yeah, I had fun with it. Coming in at number 15, we got Becky. Now, wow, this was a different type of film for Kevin James to be in. Him as a villain, who would have thought? And he does a good job at it too, just like Russell Crowe did in Unhinged. But this one's much more in line with, I don't want to say Home Alone, but there's a kid in this movie that really tries to fuck up the bad guys, for lack of a better term, in the most gruesome ways and inventive ways. Like for example, how like Home Alone had the paint cans and all that. Well, this little girl Becky does things like that, but it's pretty gruesome. This is definitely an R-rated version of that. Like if you're not in the scene, like different gross things with body parts and that, this one may not be for you, but it's definitely worth checking out if you want to see Kevin James acting like a complete lunatic bad guy. And they're after this something they have hiding in this house that the girl has found and will not give it back. So that's your storyline for this, and it was just a great film. Coming in at number 14, we got The Hunt. Now this was the film that was supposed to be released, I think last year or in March or in a different time. Anyway, it's been delayed because Trump called this politically wrong. This movie, how it's gonna make people fight and all that. And yeah, it definitely deals with politics, but I like how this movie doesn't really pick a side. You have like the conservatives and the liberals. Pretty much, they jab at both of them. They make them, neither one of them, out to be good or bad. They pretty much just jab fun at both sides, which I appreciate because no one wants to just pick on one side or the other. That's just asking for hate. But it wasn't afraid to dive into certain topics that one or the other don't want to talk about, which I appreciate it. You got cool kills. The opening to this just tricks you over and over and over on who's going to be your main characters, which I found was really clever. You don't see that too often. And yeah, I really enjoyed Glenn Howerton in this as a little bit of cameo. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is my favorite show, so seeing Dennis in this was a real treat for me. And the big twist at the end was seeing who was behind all this. It was a bigger, higher class actor too, which was kind of interesting to see her in this role. Little hint for you there if you haven't watched it. But yeah, definitely go check this out. It's pretty interesting. You're pinning two political groups against each other to hunt each other. It's just an interesting premise that I'm glad I got to see. Next up at number 13, we got Mortal Kombat. Scorpion's Revenge. Yeah, Mortal Kombat Legends, rather. Now, this is a weird Mortal Kombat movie. It's animated almost like anime style, like almost like it's an Asian animated film, but and it may be. I just found it really odd mixed with Mortal Kombat, but it worked. It's very bloody, very gruesome, almost in line with like Kill Bill animation, like how that's bloody and crazy. And this is essentially like a remake of the first Mortal Kombat movie, but told more through the eyes of Scorpion, and they change up a few things to work with the Scorpion story, like with him and Sub-Zero and that. And I think that was very interesting. I didn't expect that at all. I'm a fan of the original Mortal Kombat movie, even though it has flaws and it's not that great, I don't think, but I've been watching it since I was a kid, so that's why I love it. Second one, not so much. It's garbage. But this, yeah, I like that it followed that storyline, and you do get the tournament, you do get everything you want from a Mortal Kombat movie, and that's like the way things played out. And yeah, this is very bloody, very gruesome, not for kids, unless you grew up a crazy kid like me and could watch anything. But yeah, definitely check this one out if you're a fan of Mortal Kombat. So on number 12, next up, we got The Babysitter, Killer Queen. This is the sequel to The Babysitter, I think 2017. I think the biggest problem with this sequel was the lack of Samara Weaving. But besides that, this was a very fun and funny movie. It's more over the top than ever than the first one. It's even more stylistic, I think, than the first movie was. What's his name? Mick G. Yeah, Mick G, the director. He's known to like make things pop and that. And this is no exception. The kills are pretty gruesome but funny. The returning characters, I love the cast. They find a way to bring back all the bad guys who died in the first one in a really clever way. The way they get the plot to move forward is a little cheesy, I think, with the neighbor, with the girl from the first movie that was like his girlfriend, or the girl he wanted to be his girlfriend, the kid. Yeah, it's just a really weird way to have her continue the story with the main kid. But I liked how he had psychological issues, and it made like no one believed what happened in the first movie, which is kind of crazy to think about it. But I just had a really fun time with The Babysitter 2. It wasn't as good as the original, but it was still I still had a blast with it. Coming in at number 11, we got 12-Hour Shift. Now this movie came out of nowhere, had no idea about it, never heard of it or nothing, just kind of going through top 10 movies of 2020 to finish my list, and I've seen this on a few people's lists, so I figured I'd check it out. It had a girl with blood on her face on the cover, so that interested me. And this is a thriller about a nurse who is like a drug addict. She's sniffing pills and all that stuff, but she's doing her job. But at the same time, when she can, she's stealing organs in that to help out her drug trafficking cousin, or organ trafficking cousin, to get her out of trouble. And once they need an organ and they need it now, or it's her cousin's life, the movie really starts to pick up, and they're struggling to try to save each other, and looking for more organs in the hospital. And it's just a really dark comedy. It's not a straight up comedy. It's a dark comedy, just the way it plays out. It's not going to be for everybody, but I had quite pretty good time with it. I give this probably like a 7.5 out of 10. It was interesting. It put you into awkward situations, and it just made for a fun watch, especially one I never heard about, and I recommend you guys check it out. So guys, we're finally cracking down into my top 10. This is taking a little longer than I had anticipated, but that's all good. So coming in at number 10, I would have never expected Borat 2, or whatever it's called, but a subsequent movie film. And for one thing, I had no idea Borat was coming out with another movie, let alone in 2020. But this was hilarious, probably just as funny as the first one. He goes back to America from Kazakhstan. During all this COVID stuff and all this Trump stuff, what a perfect time for Borat to visit America again. And it is just so funny when he's hanging out with the Southerners, and he's making them look like fools without them knowing, or whether it's his daughter, which was an amazing addition. And I think she really makes this movie work. Like, I don't know who that actress is, but she plays his 15-year-old daughter, which I'm pretty sure she's much older than that in real life. But she does this a great job at you would think that this is Borat's daughter in real life if Borat was a real person. But you get the same type of humor as in the first one, and it all lands, surprisingly, being a sequel that came out this far into the future. But yeah, I had a good time with this movie. You should definitely check it out if you were skeptical. Coming in at number 9, we got Bill and Ted Face the Music. Now, I did a ranking of all the Bill and Ted movies when this was released, and I had a really good time with this one. Well, coming in at my number 9 of the year. And who would have expected Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter coming back into the roles as if they never left, and them being at the age that they are. I think like they must be like late 40s or 40s by now anyway, mid 40s, late 40s. And it's as if they didn't leave. Their surfer words and all their dialogue is all the same. But you get a unique way to continue your story, saying how they were always supposed to be the saviors of the future and of humanity, and to reunite the world in peace, but they still haven't figured it out, so they had to try to travel to the future to try to steal a song from themselves, which makes for a really funny storyline. And you got their daughters, Samara Weaving being one of them, and the other girl, I don't know her name, but and it's not showing up, Kristen Schaal maybe, but yeah, she I'm not sure her name, but Samara Weaving and the other girl playing Bill and Ted's daughters did an amazing job. You could swear it's their daughters. And I just loved everything about this movie. The first movie is very nostalgic for me, and it will always be my favorite. But this one, it was just so funny, and there's this robot, new robot in this movie that's almost like a hitman, like a killer robot. And he is so funny. He brings the humor all the way. Him and Death. And I don't want to tell you his name. I was about to tell you his name, but it's going to ruin one of the jokes if you haven't seen the movie. But he is hilarious. I love it. And this comes all around. They try to tie in all the movies better with this one. And I think it ended on a high note. A good way to wrap up the story. Coming in at number 8 is Tenet, one of the more frustrating movies of the year. Because when I just watched this like a week or two ago, and I wasn't sure if this was my favorite movie of the year, a masterpiece, or if I just liked it. So I gave it a second watch, and I realized I just liked this. Christopher Nolan, who directed this movie, also made Inception, Memento, The Dark Knight, all those amazing movies. I knew that this was going to be a really ambitious film. He doesn't shy away from odd concepts and difficult scripts. I don't know if this one was a little bit too much for him to chew. It's 2.5 hours long, and it still feels like we're not fully understanding everything that's going on. Even on my second watch, I do understand the story. I understand everything, essentially what's going on. It's it's not explained very clearly. And when they are talking in the movie, like any dialogue, a lot of the important dialogue is muffled because it's just bad audio mixing, I think. But this is a good movie, don't get me wrong, but it's just not one of my favorites. Like Memento and those movies are in my top of all time. This one didn't reach there. It's a very clever concept. The having everything in reverse must have been extremely difficult to film and to write this story. It's just a very ambitious experiment that Nolan did. And that's what it almost feels like, an experiment. But this is definitely worth a watch. You guys see it for yourself. This may be your favorite of the movie of the year, and it may be your least favorite movie of the year. It's that decisive, I think. But for me, it's right in the middle of Nolan's movies. I probably preferred this a little bit more than The Prestige. But yeah, less than Inception, Dark Knight, and Memento. But very clever. I don't know how the hell he comes up with this stuff. Next up at number 7, we got The Platform. Yeah, The Platform. This is a foreign film. I forget where from. I think maybe Spain, but don't quote me on that. I watched this on Netflix. I think I had the dub version, not the subtitles, but where they changed the voices. And yeah, just another original concept where it's almost about society. They're in this prison that is vertical. That's vertical, right? Yeah, I'm stupid sometimes. And each place has a level. Each room is a level, and the food starts at the top on a table and comes down throughout all the levels. So by the time it hits the bottom, obviously there's nothing there, and it's really just a cool way to show how society works, and the rich and the poor, and they get what they want and the rest is scraps. Some shit on the people down below them and don't want them to have any. Like, why would you want to help them when the people above you won't help you? And it was just a very clever way to discuss that in a story. And I just loved the concept of it. The characters were great. I'm really getting into foreign films lately too. That I haven't seen too many bad ones. I'm sure there are just as many bad as good, but not the ones you hear about anyway. And yeah, The Platform, this really cool film. It made it to my number 7 out of 41 films, so it's definitely worth checking out. One more thing, you could bring in one thing that you wanted into this prison, anything you want. Which was, and one guy brought a book, and the other guy brought a knife, which brings an interesting little fight between them two. And every month or so, I think they would switch rooms, and you could end up on the top floor or even lower, and you never know where you were going to end up. And it was just a big mystery that I really enjoyed. I like the way it played out. The only thing I could have made this a little better would be the ending. I would have tweaked the ending a tiny bit, the way things ended, but it still wasn't bad. I still enjoyed it. So now we're moving into my top 6, and these are movies that I really enjoyed. Now these are, well, this next one's starting at an 8 out of 10, and they're moving up. So coming in at 6th place, I need to look at the screen for this one because it's Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Why name it that? That was your biggest downfall. Call it just Birds of Prey. But I almost see why they didn't call it Birds of Prey, because this doesn't feel like a necessarily Birds of Prey movie. It feels more like a setup for a Birds of Prey movie. But that is not a flaw to me. I enjoy Harley Quinn as the character, and she just continues from Suicide Squad, almost even stronger into this. She broke up with the Joker, so this is pretty much her after breaking up and having no one to protect her, dealing with life and different gangsters and different things like that. While the girls, the Birds of Prey, is a team of girls that slowly come together in this movie, and by the very end they're all together kicking ass. I hear a lot of complaints about Black Mask. Yeah, he's not very very villainous, I guess. He does one or two creepy things. What's his name? Obi-Wan Kenobi plays him. He's in Doctor Sleep and that. I'm just blanking. Ian McGregor. He plays him, and I don't know. There's a lot of like offbeat humor with his character, which I really enjoyed. Some people are gonna think it's too silly for Black Mask, but I just had a really good time with it. The way he was going on and talking, I burst out laughing a few times in theaters. And this is the last movie I seen in theaters before the pandemic shut down. So at least I got to see this. This may be why I like this movie this much. But I also watched it outside of theaters after just to confirm my love for it. And I do love this movie. It is a fun time. Don't take it too seriously, and enjoy that it's R-rated. They gave us an R-rated fun time with Harley Quinn. You couldn't ask for more. Uh, and I think that R rating gave us a few things that we would have never got in the DC beforehand, before Deadpool and before Logan. Now they're more comfortable with doing it, but then this movie bombed, so maybe we will never get anything like this again. Who knows? Okay, top five. Number five, we got VFW, and that stands for something to do with veterans in the war. Veteran Foreign Wars or something like that. I can't remember, but this movie's about a bar where these guys hang out, these veterans, and a girl runs in with drugs while a shit ton of the drug lords are following her, and they're trying to break into this bar to get her at any means possible, and will kill anybody to get it back, because this is like some crazy meth that makes people go crazy and need it. And yeah, this movie reminds me a lot of John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13. It has a lot of those vibes to it. It's dark. It got a lot of gore, some messed up violence in it, which I really loved. And yeah, it's just a kick-ass, violent, like John Carpenter homage movie. I loved it. It's you got a lot of veteran actors too, which I can't. I'm not very good with names, guys, but I recognize a lot of their faces. You get the guy from, was it Cheers, in this, the bartender? I think he was in this. I'm pretty sure it's Cheers, or was it? Yeah, it's Cheers. I'm pretty sure. And there's a funny little thing with him laying on the bar, which is kind of referencing Cheers at the same time, because he was the bartender and then he can't move. He's laying on the bar. He's saying how he'll stay there. I thought that was pretty clever. And this is just a kick-ass film if you haven't seen it. Well, you got these crazy drug meth heads versus these crazy soldiers, veteran soldiers that don't shy away from blood and gore. So check that one out if you haven't already. Next up, we got at number 4, we got Freaky. This is a play on Freaky Friday. I think this was the same director as Happy Death Day. So this guy pretty much takes slashers and mixes them with a different genre. The first time was Groundhog Day. This time it's Freaky Friday. And I think he pulls it off even better than Happy Death Day, in my opinion, because we actually get to see the kills this time. They're not watered down. This is R-rated. You get Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton and Vince Vaughn switching places in this movie, changing bodies, which is hilarious because he's 6 foot something, this big menacing guy. You don't realize how big Vince Vaughn is, but he is huge, and he was the serial killer that switched into the little girl's body, and it makes for a lot of hilarious interactions with other characters. This is a funny movie. I love that it didn't shy away from the kills and the gore. The only thing I'd say, it may have played a little too safe. It's a little predictable. You're going to know how this movie ends right when it starts, just the way everything plays out. But that doesn't mean it's not worth watching. There's funny as hell character moments and dialogue. And yeah, if you like slashers, you better check this one out because this is a great horror comedy. Top 3. We're in the top 3. And top 3, we're actually going with a Netflix movie. Can you believe it? Netflix made my top 3 with Extraction. And it's an action movie. I'm not even an action guy. If you know me, I'm more of a comedy or horror movie type of fan. Those are my go-tos. I'm not so much into action, but this one was done so well with Chris Hemsworth, the Thor himself. And he's just this mercenary that has to deliver a kid to another, like for one place to another, and while all these people are after them and trying to kill them both and get back the kid, and it's just a kick-ass action film. You get lots of hand-to-hand combat and good shooting scenes too, but the way it's filmed, you get like a 15-minute long shot that doesn't like go off. It doesn't seem like the camera goes off of the scenario that's happening or unfolding in front of you while going through apartments and car chases. It just doesn't stop. The camera never switches to another camera. It stays on it, which is very impressive. But you're starting to see a lot more in movies nowadays, like the Army movie, 1917, the war movie, which I haven't yet seen. I heard it was great, though. But yeah, Extraction is just great action. Great story. It was heartfelt story there. I found, especially around the end with the kid, and it was interesting to be all set around India, I believe. So it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it, especially for Netflix. This is definitely worth checking out. One of the best action movies of the year. Coming in at number 2, I got The Lodge, the horror movie that everybody was talking about before it was released. And I got to see it. If you watch this movie once and you hated it, I'm definitely begging you to go back and give it another shot, whether you were too tired or you just weren't in the mood, because that happens. Because for me, I had to do that. First time I watched it, I was kind of hungover, dozing on and off, and I kept waking up in important parts. I didn't understand what was going on. I found it was stupid. I found it was slow. I found it nothing worked for me. Turned it off. Next day, restarted it with a fresh mind, in good health, and was paying attention and everything. And wow, I'm glad I did. Well, it made my number 2 of the year. This movie kicks ass. It mixes religion with isolation, and it really gets in your head. It makes you think that the whole movie is about something, and then it flips it at the very, like, 3/4 mark, and you're like, wow, great twist. If you know the twist, that I'm sorry for you, because it's probably going to ruin the movie. That's why I'm not giving anything away. This is about this girl who goes to hang out with her boyfriend and his 2 kids at a cabin at a lodge in the middle of kind of nowhere in winter, and he has to go off and she spends time with the kids. And weird shit starts happening, things start to get moved around, and I don't want to give anything else away, but wow, the atmosphere in this movie is top notch. It's a slow burn, but it works because the big reveal and the twists are totally worth it. The ending is a shocker. I'm still scratching my head over it, going, like, in a good way, going, what? This is just an amazing film that I hope more people get to appreciate over the years. There's a few haters out there, but that's expected with this type of slow burn. But it's just done beautifully. The cinematography, the score, everything's done at high levels. And yeah, this is a great movie that I can't wait to revisit. I might review in February or something like that when we're still in the snowy weather. We finally made it to number 1, and my number 1 movie of the year is, drum roll, I got no drums, so, is The Invisible Man. This is my favorite horror movie, and any type of genre, really, movie of the year. This is it. I hope that all the Universal movies, the old ones like Frankenstein, they're all supposed to get redone, modernized like this. I hope they do it like this, because this was the best way I think you could have done it in a modern way, without just rehashing the original story. This is such a good film. The main actress, Elizabeth Moss, she nails. She's probably does the best acting of the whole year for me. Like, her character is so believable. She feels so helpless, and you just want to reach out into the screen and help her. But yeah, she kills it. So does the villain. I like the way that they introduced invisibility. It's done in a really different way than the older movies, than back in like the 30s or 40s. It's an upgrade, but I think it's done in a good direction. It could have been a little more scary. That's about it. Like, I give this an 8.5 out of 10. My favorite movie of the year only gets that. So that's what 2020 gave us. But that's the only thing it could have been just a tiny bit more scary, I guess, but most movies aren't scary anyway nowadays, so I don't hold that against this too much. But yeah, I just love this film. I definitely got to add it to my collection. I don't own it yet. Just waiting for the price to drop, because I'm a cheap bastard. But yeah, I love this movie, and I can't wait for other Universal monsters to get modernized, if they're going to be in this high of quality. So there you have it. 41 movies up, 41 movies down. That was a little Hot Ones reference right there. But that was from worst to best. I haven't gotten to see every movie. You guys, your job now is to let me know the movies I missed that I should really check out. Let me know down below in the comments, because yeah, this year I didn't really go for the new releases all that much. I kept going back to the 80s and 90s, to the things I missed and to things I love. So next year, 2021, I'm going to try to get on even more new releases, since I have a YouTube channel now. I have much more content to come out in 2021, so I hope to see you here. I plan on doing like Blu-ray collection. I plan on doing tons of more reviews, like way more than now there. 2020 was just my testing ground. I'm still going to be doing music reactions, just maybe cutting it down to 5 a week or so to not screw up my other scheduling. I got a new program with Filthy Dan and crew member over on Filthy Dan's channel. We're going to be talking about metal music at least like once a month or so. And our next big one's going to be in January, I believe the 22nd, for a thrash metal discussion, the big four: Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer. So if you're interested in that type of content, make sure to head over there to his channel on the 22nd, which we're almost positive that's going to be our release date for that. But yeah, we're going live anyway. So that was it for my 2020 ranking, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I try to avoid most duds, and I try to get a lot of the biggie heavy hitters. I still miss some like that Host movie and like Bad Boys 3, just because it's been so long since I've seen the first two that I didn't want to just watch the third one. I would have had to watch all three. That's the type of guy I am. I have to watch full franchises. I don't like just picking one movie out of the franchise. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Hopefully 2021 I have tons of more content for you guys if everything works out. And yeah, have a good year. Hopefully this 2021's a lot better than 2020. I can't see it be any worse. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for watching.